Hey everybody, welcome back to the Securicy Brief. Today we're going to talk about passwords and the best practices for safe passwords. So everybody uses passwords for everything. It's one of the most common methods of authentication to access devices and to access web services and web applications. We're also seeing people start to use them to access their cars, to access their homes, so obviously very important. The other thing is, you have to really think, like, if somebody gets a hold of your passwords, what can they do? So when you think about that, imagine somebody gets your email, then they have the keys to everything, they can start resetting other passwords, so that's really bad. If they get access to your social media, they can have access to all kinds of stuff there. So, it's really important that you think about that and make sure that you put good password processes in place for your business and for yourself personally as well. So today in the video, we're actually going to just talk about the 5 best practices that you can implement right away to improve your security through passwords. Number 1 is use a different password for each service. Do not use the same password over and over in various services. It means that if somebody figures that password out, they're going to be able to get access to a lot of stuff. And plus, on top of that, breaches are happening all the time. And sometimes when a breach happens, they actually get your password. So it's easy for hackers to go on there and find your old LinkedIn password from a LinkedIn pass breach or MySpace password. So make sure you're using different passwords. It's going to go a long way to keeping you safe online. Number 2 is use long passphrases or complex passwords. So a long passphrase would be actually just like, I like walking my dog in the morning, could be an example of a long passphrase. So in that case, it's sort of a phrase that you can memorize. Make sure it's not something that would be like identifiable to you. Make it long enough. A lot of people go with at least 30 characters when they're doing a passphrase, but it's a really great way to have something more memorable. It could be a lyric to a song, could be a page 87 bottom of a book that you have in your cupboard. Just don't tell people that that's what you're doing. It could be anything like that. The other option is using complex passwords. So that's where you start having like maybe 16 characters, and you'll have capitals and you'll have numbers and symbols and stuff like that. These types of passwords are a lot harder to memorize. So just keep that in mind when you're sort of picking your passwords. Now, if you're using a lot of passwords, which a lot of people this day and age are, I think I have something like 40 or 45 passwords that I use. They're all different. Now, clearly I can't memorize that. And that's why there's been a lot of different software solutions that have come out in the field of password managers. So you've probably heard of things like LastPass or 1Password or Dashlane. These services are great. I'm a strong supporter of them. Obviously, when you use them, you need to make sure you're very secure, have a strong passphrase or password on them, and use 2-factor auth on them. But essentially, you now have all your passwords in one place. You don't have to memorize them. You don't have to write them down, which is a really bad practice, writing passwords down. And you can access them to get access to your sites and services really quickly. So I really recommend that. Worst case scenario, if you don't want to buy a password manager, especially for personal use, if you use Mac has a great keychain tool that works as a password manager, and a lot of people use that. Great tool there for sure. The next one is changing your password. Now, if you've been using the same passwords for a lot of stuff, this is really critical. Take this opportunity to actually start from scratch, change all your passwords. There are a lot of different beliefs in the security world and the professionals out there in the security space. Some believe that changing your passwords on a regular basis is a great habit. Others are against it. And if you're thinking about this for your business, you might want to look at what compliance requirements you have and look at what those standards actually recommend. Generally, my belief is that changing your passwords is a great thing, but if you do it too often, it can be a lot of work, especially when you have a lot of passwords. So you really have to look at your organization, your requirements to figure out how often you do that. But as a starting point, I would start by changing all your passwords right now and implementing your new password approach. And then the final one, the last one, and certainly not the least important, is 2-factor authentication. And this is a really, really big one that I recommend you use on every service that you use on the web that supports 2-factor authentication. And essentially all it is you now need something more than just a password. You need to have your phone on you, because when you log in for the first time on a new device or in a new browser, it's going to not let you in until you enter a short usually 6-digit code that gets sent to you in a text and is viable for maybe a minute or 5 minutes or some short duration of time. So in other words, if somebody was to get your password, they would need to have your cell phone as well in order to really get into your services. So that's a really big one. So there you have it, the 5 best practices to improve your security through password management. Again, for recap, use a different password for each service. Use the long passphrases or complex passwords. Use a password manager if you have a lot of passwords. Change your password and implement two-factor authentication where applicable. I hope you like this video. Please like it below, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.